Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm gonna show you how to create this event motion poster design in After Effects. If you want the project file, you can go and check this Instagram post and comment link and I'll send you the files directly to your DMs. And don't forget to follow me as well. Let's get started. Alright, here I am in After Effects. You can see here in the project panel, I have the main image which has a transparent background and some other stock images and Spotify screenshot of this that I will be using it for the background, and I also have a stock footage. I'm going to just grab that and stock footage of this crowd here. Let's go ahead and create a new composition first. I'll go with 1080 by 1080, which is a square pixel, 15 seconds long, and I'm going to rename this main comp. Hit OK, create a solid, and I am going to rename this floor, and I'm going to extend the width 1350, and I'm gonna hit OK. Make this a 3D layer and hit R and rotate the X rotation to 90, and I'm gonna move this down like this. All right, let me just go ahead and import the main image. I'm going to make this layer a 3D as well. Alright, and I'm gonna hit S and maybe scale it down 50% like this. I'm gonna leave it that for now. Let's go ahead and create a camera first. And I'm gonna set this to 50 and hit OK. And create a null object, which is a 3D layer as well. And I'm going to parent the camera to the null object. So we're going to use the null object as a controller. All right. So if you go here in the camera view, we'll switch from one view to two views. We have two views. Okay. So if you zoom out, you can see the camera is here. This is the floor and the main character is somewhere here. You want to move the main character and push it away. You can move this up a little bit so that it does not intersect with the floor. So somewhere around this should be fine. If you drag in the Spotify background here just below the main and make this a 3D layer, and if you go to the left window, so I always want to work with two windows for 3D elements like this. It's gonna make your life a lot easier to navigate the view. The position is going to look like, maybe I'm going to push it far away, even far away, and I can adjust the scale, something like this. Let me drop in the background video, which is this. Okay, so I'm going to drop it at the bottom here, make this a 3D layer as well, and I'm going to move this way back here, somewhere here, and maybe I'm going to scale it up to fit the composition. You can see the composition here, fit. Oops. This one, I'm going to set the scale up and maybe move these up somewhere here and maybe lower the opacity of this to 50% or so. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new solid. Okay, and I'm gonna move it down just below the floor layer because we have a transparent background. If I don't shut off this, you can see it's transparent, so we need a black solid at the background. Okay, so that's the setup, and now that we have that, let me just go back to just one view. I'm going to duplicate this floor, Control D, and I'm going to go here and select this ellipse tool. Selecting on the duplicated floor, we're going to double click this and we're going to select this mask and subtract it. Once you do that, nothing happens. We're going to go to this layer, change the color of the solid. To do that, Control Shift and Y or Command Shift and Y. We can make this a little bit lighter, something like that. Go and select this layer, hit F to bring up the feather and hit increase the feather, but we have a sharp edge here, which I don't like it. I'm gonna select the mask, and maybe I'm gonna refine this. If you hold down Control and Alt, you can, scale down the mask like this. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm going to use these images, and we're gonna do some 3D camera animation after that. So let's just do that real quick. So I'm gonna create a new pre-comp, which will be 1080 by 1920, which is a vertical resolution, and I'm gonna rename this maybe image 1, and I'm gonna hit OK. Drag and drop the image 1 inside this, and maybe I'm gonna scale it down something like this. And what I'm gonna do is grab this rounded rectangle tool and draw a rounded rectangle across around the image, something like this. You don't have to be super precise about this. I'm gonna increase the roundness going inside the rectangle path 1. Maybe I'm gonna increase it to 90, and I'm gonna duplicate this and go and change the other layer from having a stroke to no stroke, and I'm gonna go and set a fill to black. Okay, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mask this layer like that, and I'm gonna duplicate this, Control D. So if you double click and open this image 2 pre-comp, so you just have to replace this image. All right, so I'm gonna select this image, go and find the image that I want to replace with. I'm gonna hold down Alt, drag and drop it on top of that, and it easily replaces that. So I'm gonna close these two pre-comps and go to the main comp, which is this, and I'm going to find the image 1 and 2 pre-comps and simply drag and drop it just below the main comp and make this a 3D layer as well. Just after making that 3D layer, I'm going to switch the view into 2 views, and I'm going inside the left view again of the transparency, and I'm going to position these 2 images between the Spotify layer and the main subject, somewhere around here. And I'm gonna scale it down the size, maybe 50% or so. Let me go back to one view so that I can see what's going on, and it's going behind the Spotify layer. Just wait, somewhere here. Okay, so I'm gonna move it somewhere here, and maybe the other one to the left side, or we're going to scale it down even more, 30%. Okay, that's great. So we need some opacity going on with this Spotify layer. If I change this to screen, it looks nice, but you don't have that blurry thing going on there. So I'm going to duplicate this, and maybe I'm going to change the bottom layer to normal, and I'm going to change this back to an adjustment layer, and then I can simply add Gaussian blur effect and just crank up the blurriness. So if you want to learn how to create a glass textures behind these screenshots, you can watch this video, and I hope you'll like it. Once you have the assets in place, I'm going to add a text right now. So I'm going to make this a 3D layer, scale it up, and go to 2 views. I'm gonna move it just before the subject layer, somewhere here. This is it. I'm going to reposition the XY axis. That's not an issue, and I'm gonna work with the size. So let's keep that for now, and I'm gonna duplicate this, Control D, and I'm going to duplicate this and move it just below here, the image 1. So which is the Music Fest 2, just above here. So I'm going to rename this Saturday Night or something like that. You can rename your own. So that's the placement you want. So these are the 2 texts that I want to place, and I'm going to animate the camera across this text. Okay, so once I place the text in the rough position as they should be, I can go back to the one view, and I can work with the framing and animation, which is very, very simple. So I'm gonna select the null object, hit P on the keyboard. I'm gonna set a position keyframe here, go to maybe around 2 seconds, and punch the frame in, something like that. So you can select the music first and move it up. So the text needs to be somewhere here, maybe festival, TIVL, festival, okay, and should be somewhere here, and maybe change the color of the festival to, I don't know, something like the color of the guitar or so, something like that. Okay, something like that. Okay, that's great. And once you have that, you have a very static camera here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to add some wiggle expression to the camera so that you have some motion going on. So I'm going to hold down Alt on the keyboard and click on this position stopwatch and type in wiggle, and you will have some wiggle here. I'm gonna add 0.2 comma maybe 10. So the higher the values, the intense the wiggle effect will be. So let me just test this out. I think that's quite enough for this, or maybe we can increase it. Maybe we're gonna make this to 20, or let's see, or maybe 0.5 and 20. Let's see. All right, I think that's pretty nice for this for now. If needed, we can adjust it later on. So that's quite nice. And I'm gonna select all the keyframes of this null, hit F9 for easy ease, go to the graph, and what I'm gonna do is tweak the graph to something like this. And if all right, that's very smooth, and it's going there, and it's gonna hold for a while, 2, 3, maybe 2 seconds, and set a blank keyframe. And I'm going at 2 seconds. I'm going to push it in and move it to the x-axis and maybe even punch it in. And basically I'm trying to frame the Saturday night text somewhere here. Image 1 should also be adjusted, and that's why I put that in a very rough position before. So I'm gonna scale it down, maybe even more, something like this, and maybe go to Saturday night and maybe even scale that down. And let me go back and select null, hit U to show up the keyframes. Just after that, we're gonna hang in there for one second or so, set a keyframe, and I'm going back to this frame. I can copy this keyframe, Control C and Control V to paste it here. So it's coming back here, but by the time this reaches here, we're gonna add some other text. So to do that, I'm going to select this music festival, this one, and what I'm gonna do is somewhere around here, I'm going to trim this. So to do that, Control Shift and D. All right, once you have that, you can change this text, and that's pretty much it for this. And so at this keyframe, you can see here the framing is too tight. Maybe I'm gonna punch it out a little bit. So maybe I'm gonna move it a little bit like that, and maybe reframe it a little bit like this. It will hold for a while, set a blank keyframe, and it will go out. So your background video has ended somewhere here, so we're gonna fix that in a while. So I'm going to around 13 seconds or so, and I'm gonna move back like this. I'm gonna copy this, and I'm gonna copy the first frame, the first keyframe, and I'm gonna paste it here instead. So we're gonna exactly where we start. What I'm gonna do with the background layer is I'm gonna do right click, time, enable time remapping, and I'm gonna stretch this out, and I'm gonna shift this last keyframe to the end of the timeline. That solves that very simply. The final text, I'm gonna duplicate this text, Control D, and I'm gonna hit P and move it towards the camera. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to animate the position of this two. So what I'm gonna do is hit P, set a keyframe, maybe somewhere around here, and I'm going back somewhere around here, and I'm gonna push it down somewhere here. So maybe extend the frames, hit F9, and I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna select and record another keyframe. So right in the middle keyframe, I'm going to push these two layers up even more, and it will come down again like that. Okay, so I'm going to select all the keyframes, go to the graph, and I'm going to change and tweak the graph something like this, and the other side just something like that. And if you play it back, you have that. Very nice. So make sure you turn on the motion blur for both these layers. Sorry, that's not a motion blur. The motion blur switch is this one here. So if you hit U, and I might want to offset the timing of the animation of both these layers, and maybe hit U to reveal the keyframes, and maybe I'm gonna move it somewhere here, and comes here, maybe even I'm gonna start here, right? So if it goes up, down, and the camera goes here. All right, we have to add some more animation here to the text. So if you go back to the first frame, you still see this, which is the image 1. So we're going to trim this, maybe somewhere here. We're going to trim this off, right? Somewhere just before the first keyframe, I'm going to select this, hold down Alt, and begin square bracket. And I'm going to trim this as well. So I'm going to animate the camera by using the animation presets that I've already created. You can go grab one for yourself from my website. It's totally free. The link will be there in the description down below. All right, so let's select the music festival. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the slide from below animation preset. If I hit U, you can see the keyframes if you hit U. So I'm going to shift the keyframes somewhere here. So make sure you turn on the motion blur for the text layer as well. We don't need the Saturday night, which is this one. So we're gonna move it somewhere here to start the animation somewhere around here. So I'm going to the animation presets and apply bounce from below. And if I play it back, all right, that's very nice. You can turn on the motion blur. So right here, you can't read the text. So I'm gonna fix that. I'm gonna add a new solid, which is black, this color. Hit OK, and I'm gonna put that solid just below the text. I'm gonna scale the width of the solid, and I'm gonna hit go and select the rectangle tool, selecting on the solid, double click, and I'm gonna create a mask somewhere like that, and hit F, and basically I'm going to create a gradient layer so that the texts are visible. Decrease the opacity to maybe 20. Oops, that's a lot. 50, maybe 60, 80 or so. And I'm going to animate the opacity of this. So let's drag this somewhere here. Let's play it back. When it comes here, I'm going to animate the opacity. Hit T, maybe around here. I'm going to set this to 80. Go back, and maybe set this to 0. Select all the keyframes, F9, and you can check the timing again. All right, that's great. So once you have it here, you can see it's really difficult to read. So I'm going to add another solid layer, a black solid layer just below the book now and website, and I'm going to animate the opacity of this. So I'm going to set the opacity of this to 50, maybe 60, maybe 80. You can just set it to 80 or so. So we're going to set the 80 maybe here, set a keyframe for this, and go back in time maybe around here, and it should be at 0. Select all the keyframes, F9. It's very simple. It's just playing with the opacity, rotation, position, animation, and those kind of things. To sell the design even more, we're going to use the depth of field feature. So I'm going inside the camera and go to camera options, and I'm going to go to depth of field. I'm going to turn that on, and I'm going to increase the aperture to maybe 120. The higher the aperture, the more shallow depth of field you have. The lower the values, the lesser the depth you have. Okay, so I'm going to show you how you can focus, and I'm going to go to two views again, and you can see here, if you tweak the focus distance, you can see this line is moving. So we're going to set the range of that focus, and by using this stopwatch. Okay, so set a keyframe here, and at the start you can just increase, maybe the main character is this layer, so we're gonna set this focus distance here. So you can see here the main character is being focused, and if you go to around 2 seconds, by the way, if you hit U on the null, select null object and hit U, you can see the keyframes here. So I'm gonna adjust the focus distance. If you want, you can also add some smoke overlays on top of this. So that's a very long tutorial, but yet a very simple one, so with just the position, rotation, and some camera animations and some opacity animations going on. It's just a repetition of those stuffs. So that's pretty much it for this time. You can watch this video if you want to learn more about this kind of effect. This is Motion Designer, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.